So we're in this series, Life Lessons, and the past couple of weeks we've been talking over a couple of different topics. The first being set apart, that we are called by God, set apart to His calling, to Him, to live differently. And then also speaking about saying what you mean and meaning what you say. Last week we just talked about really being real, doing what we, saying what we mean, and not living, lying to ourselves about who we are or who God is. And next week, Pastor Matt Ellis is going to be speaking. It's going to be an amazing word, and I can't wait to hear it. So come excited next week for that word. And today, I want to talk to you about the terms that we live by. And I hope to encourage you in the fact that we have walked in the past on our terms, but God has called us to new terms, and in those terms is everything that we need. I want to go to Luke 17, starting at verse 29. It says, "But on the day that Lot went out," and this is Jesus speaking, he says, "On the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even so, it will be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, he who is on the housetop and his goods are in the house, let him not come down to take them away. And likewise, the one who is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it." And in the Message Bible, this verse 33, it says it like this. It says, "If you grasp and cling to life on your terms, you'll lose it. But if you let that life go, you'll get life on God's terms." You'll get life on God's terms. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later, but I want to talk a little bit about Lot and that story. We probably all remember the story of Lot and his family, but God was coming to bring, what it says here, fire, brimstone, to bring destruction because they were not living right. They had completely gone away. And also Abraham had pleaded with God, "God, hey, if there's this many people, will you save the city? Will you deter your wrath on the city?" And so, it ended up that, Abraham just kind of realized that he's like, maybe this many? Maybe a few, well, how about this many? I'm not really sure. How about if Lot is there? And God's like, look, we're going to go in there, and Lot's going to have to get out because this is happening. And what happened is, the two angels came, and they came into the town, and they come by Lot's house, and Lot pulls them in because he knows the place that he's living. He knows the people around him. He knows the town, and that it's not good. And he's like, "Listen, you need to come in here." They're like, no, we'll stay out in the town square. We're good. And he's like, "No, you don't understand. You need to come inside. I know where I'm living. I know these people. I know the place that I reside, and it's not good." And the funny thing is that he's living in this place. He's living in this place of sin. He's living in this place of corruption and all this stuff. And he's like, "You can't stay out there." And so when they come in, they tell him that your family, gather them together, whoever you have, get them together. You're going to have to leave because God is going to destroy this place. But the thing is that Lot and his wife, they didn't really want to go. They didn't want to get out of that place that they were living. They didn't want to get out of the familiarity of the sin, the stuff. Maybe they were okay, but, and they had a big palace, a house, a great place to live, and they were doing okay, but they were living in the midst of this sin. feeling like it was going to be okay. And God says, no, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to get out. The problem is the family didn't want to go, and so Lot and his wife, the angels, they're pushing them out. They're saying, no, you have to leave. Look, we said that we would take care of you and save you. The only thing is that as we're shoving you up the hill out of this town, don't look back. Don't look back. Don't cling to the things that are in the past. Those things, don't hold on to that stuff. Look forward into the future, into what God has for you, that he's saving you and bringing you to a new place. Don't hold on to those things. And so they're being escorted out. Keep going. Go. And what happens? Lot's wife has trouble because she's trying to hold on to some of those things. But we lived there, but we had, this stuff. I know that it wasn't a good place. I know that I probably shouldn't live there, but look at what we had. And she turns around and she's turned into a pillar of salt. And in this story, there's a couple of things that I hope to bring out to help us to stop holding on to the past, stop grasping at these things that maybe were good or maybe aren't good, but it feels good. Sometimes we've become comfortable with the sin or comfortable with a way of living that's not God's way and not what he wants for us. And it's hard to let go, but he says, let go and don't look back. Whose terms are we living by? The first thing I want to say is that this doesn't mean that we sit back and do nothing. See, Lot and his wife had to get up and go. I mean, they had a little bit of help. It seemed like that the angels were pushing them out because they were struggling to move on their own, but they had to get up out of their place, out of their house, and start walking and go to this new place. Because the old place, because the place that they lived, the place that was comfortable, was not what God had for them. Was not what he wanted for them. In Thessalonians 1:11 it says, and this is the Amplified, it says, with this in view, we constantly pray for you that our God will count you worthy of your calling to faith. And with his power, fulfill every desire for goodness and complete your every work of faith. See, we are not supposed to just come into this relationship with God and say, God, here I am. I want all that you have for me, but I'm going to sit here and do nothing. It's not that way. We come into this relationship with God, into this covenant with God, standing on our own 2 feet, but then realizing that the only reason that we can stand is because he is allowing and giving us the strength to stand. He's the one that is giving us the things that we need. He's sustaining us and taking care of us. But it doesn't mean that we just sit back and do nothing. We have to get up and move with him. It doesn't mean that our will and our resolve is just set aside, set on a shelf, and then God's just going to pull me everywhere I'm supposed to go. It'd be nice, but that's not what happens. What's supposed to happen is that we come into this relationship with God and we follow him, but using the strength, the will, the creativity, the knowledge, the things that he's given us to move with him, in relationship with him. In another translation, it says that it is by the power of God that we will fulfill our good resolves and our works of faith. Our good resolves. It's like this firm decision that God has given us the ability to make these decisions, but we have to make the right ones. We have to make decisions that are with him and what he wants us to do. We are called into his purposes, not our own. You know, I was thinking about this and coming into God's terms and who he is and what he wants for our lives. And I was thinking about leasing a car. And what I was talking about, that it's not that we just don't do anything and then somehow he drags us around. You know, there's so many different areas of our life that we come into these relationships, if you will, or contracts where we understand the terms. Like when you lease a car, you're saying, I'm going to come into this relationship or this contract where I'm leasing a car from a company and I am in this contract so that I can have your car, but I can drive it around. And it gives me power to move and to go faster and further than I've ever been before. We don't come into this contract saying, I'm going to get this car from you and I'm going to sit in the back seat and you're going to drive me around everywhere I'm supposed to go. That's not what it is. But somehow, many times we think with God that we're just going to sit back in the back seat of the car and that he's going to just drag us around. Like, come on, drive me around, God. Take me someplace. I'm going to be lazy over here and sit in the back seat. But that's not what he's asked us to do. He says, I want you to come into this relationship with me. Of course, I'm going to lead you and guide you. Of course, I'm going to sustain you and be your help and your protection and your strength. Of course, all these different things. But I want you to get up and go with me. Get up there and work with God. Coming into this relationship does not mean that we don't do anything. It means that we do something with God in his terms, with his ability and his strength. It's just the understanding of knowing that the reason that we can do these things is because of him. It doesn't mean setting our will on the shelf. God's power doesn't do away with our resolve or our will. What it does is when we bring our will and our resolve into his power and who he is, then we get our strength and our understanding and everything that we need from him. And then he starts moving us in the direction that he wants us to go. But with us walking with him. In Philippians 3:12 it says, not that I have already attained or I'm already perfected, but I press on that I may lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus has also laid hold of me. Brethren, I do not count myself to have apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to those things which are ahead. So we have here Paul, he's taking this thing, and I see it just like this thing with Lot and his wife, and he's saying, not that I think that I've attained something, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget the things that lay behind, and I'm going to grab hold of what God has for me in the future. See, Paul, he had a past. Think about this. You may say, well, you don't know what my past is. You don't know what I've done, or you don't know what I'm dealing with. I may not, but God does. He does know these things. And you know what the great thing is? Is that he's not holding on to those things. What he's doing is trying to lead us into what he has in the future. And that's what Paul's saying here. He's like, I'm not holding on. What if he held on to the past? You remember? He persecuted. He killed. He was hunting these Christians. He was hunting the people that weren't like him. And if he would have held on to these things, how much do you think that it would have pulled him down or weighed on him if he held on to that past that he had? And he's saying, listen, I may have a past, but I'm not going to hold on to it. I may have something in my past that is not great, but God's not going to hold on to that, so I'm not going to either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay hold of what he has for me in my future. And remember, that's what Lot's wife struggled with. And that's what Jesus is telling us. Look, in that day when the Son of Man is revealed, when that time comes that he's revealed, if you think, oh, well, there's a bunch of stuff back here, you're going to miss it. You're not going to be able to lay hold of that call that he's got on your life. You're not going to be able to step into the great things that he's called you to. So first of all, it doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. Second, it does mean that the terms have changed. The terms of our living have changed. When Tori and I got married, the terms of my life got changed. Again, like I talked about, different terms, contracts, relationships that we come into. A lot of times, we understand those and we can walk in them, but sometimes we have a struggle when it comes to our walk with God. Whenever I got married to this beautiful girl right here, who's made me better in every way. She was just talking about how, it wasn't that she had to not be independent and strong. But the terms had changed, so we came together to work together in who we are. Right? I didn't have to change who I am. I just had to change how I acted, how I went about my business, because now I'm married. I'm married. I can't go looking at other girls. I can't go on a date with somebody besides my wife. I can't do these things. And you come into this relationship and you understand that. You know that things have changed. But that doesn't change the fact that you are who you are. It's just how you work together and come together. It's the same with our walk with God. The terms have changed. Lot's wife didn't like the terms. She was struggling with leaving those things that she had been holding on to. I don't know, maybe it was lots of great furniture in her house. Who knows what it was? Maybe it was friends that she had had. But remember, the whole place was completely corrupt. But I'm sure she had relationships and had people that she knew, and she was having trouble letting go of that. But what I'm saying is that when we come into relationship with God, the terms have changed. So what are the things that we need to start allowing God to change in our life? What are the things that we need to start following him in, where we've been just following what we want or what we feel that we need? Or things in our past that we've been holding on to, when God says, I want to strengthen you. I want to give you this courage and the knowledge of who I am so that you can move forward in power and in strength and in all these different things. But what I need you to do is I need you to let go of those things that you've been holding on to and grab hold of who I am and move forward in what I've called you to do. I'm telling you, listen, it's just like getting married. You can have this thing of like, well, getting married, I mean, that's a commitment. I mean, there's, a long time, the rest of my life. I have to give up some things. But when it comes down to it, Those selfish things that I could possibly hold on to do not hold a candle to the things that I attain by having this relationship with my wife. By having her with me to walk alongside me. These things, it's made me better. How much more is it when we come into relationship with God that it makes us better? We say, oh, but it's commitment and it's you know then now I have to be on God's terms, and yeah, but where were your terms getting you? How was that working out for you? And the understanding that God's will for our lives, His knowledge of who we are and what we need is so much greater than we could ever understand or ever know. So how could we possibly think that coming into this relationship with Him and into His terms of how we should live, how we should walk, what we should do, how could we possibly think that those would not be the most fulfilling, great, powerful things in our life? Because I'm telling you, they are. They are the most powerful times in our life. They are the most fulfilling times in our life. Because He knows us better than we know ourselves. In Luke 9:62 it says, "But Jesus said to him, 'No one having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God.'" In the Message it says, "No procrastination, no backward looks. You can't put God's kingdom off till tomorrow. Seize the day." No procrastination. And it says, Jesus is saying, if you put your hands to the plow and you look back, you're not fit for the kingdom. Why? I've never used a plow, like a plow that's plow. But I've used a tiller, okay? I'm a little bit of a farmer. I've got some vegetables growing. It's pretty awesome. But anyway, when you put your hands to the tiller, if I'm trying to till up ground and move forward in this thing and see, look, I want fruit in my life. I want things to grow. I want things to happen in my life. And so what happens is I'm putting my hands to the tiller or the plow. And if I put my hands on there and I keep looking back, what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to run into the house. I'm not going to be able to actually till up this ground to move forward. I'm not going to actually be able to plant these plants because I'm actually going to run over all the stuff in my yard and actually be a mess because I'm looking back. And what Jesus is saying is like, listen, whenever you come into this relationship, you're coming to this relationship and you need to look forward and understand that you need to lay hold of that which is ahead and let go of that which lies behind. Holding on to those things that are behind us, whether they're good or bad. These things, like I said, there could be things that we're holding on to that we shouldn't. There could be things, great things that God did in our life in the past. But the problem is holding on to those things is not going to allow us to move forward into what He has for us in the future. See, He says, I'm going to move you forward. You're going to see growth. You're going to see fruit. You're going to see all these things happen in your life if you put your hands to the plow and look forward. If you grab hold of what I have for you. First scripture we read back in verse 32 says, "Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life will preserve it." And again in the Message Bible, if you grasp and cling to your life on your terms, you'll lose it. But if you let go, you'll get life on God's terms. God says, I have the most amazing terms for your life that you could possibly imagine. I've got great things for you. I've called you to come into this relationship with me so that we can move forward in strength and power, so that I can use you to do great things. He wants joy and peace in your life. He wants you to move forward in the power of who he is. And he says, just grab hold of who I am and don't look back. Just grab hold of my peace. Grab hold of my mercy, my grace. Grab hold of who I am. And let go of that thing that you've been clinging to and holding on to. There's nothing back there that's actually going to get you to where we need to go. It's not that we have to forget everything. He's just saying those things that we cling to, really the selfish things that we cling to. Remember, God told people to remember at many different points. Set up memorial stones and to remember. But what is that for? It's for our understanding of what he has done. But it's not to stay there and worship that thing. It's just to remember it at different times in our life. Maybe sometime when I come into a place where it's been a little tough, it's been a struggle, I can remember that God did this great thing in my life. But if I'm staying there and holding on to that thing, I'm not going to get to the wonderful, great things that he's calling me to in the future. He says, remember those things that I've done in your life, but don't hold on to them. Allow those things to be a place of learning, a place of growth, a place of remembering who I am and what I've done, but don't hold on to those things too tightly. Let those things go and see what I do in the future. Amen? Will you stand with me?